Hello boys and girls and welcome. This is another edition of WWE How I Would Book It 2015. We are back with Monday Night Raw, live from North Carolina, and we begin with Michael Cole, Booker T, and JBL discussing the Mr. Money in the Bank, Seth Rollins. They discuss how Seth Rollins came up short on SmackDown against Daniel Bryan after being distracted by the music of Randy Orton, who we haven't seen since he was attacked by the Authority back in November. And they discuss... I apologize. I just saw that they are talking about both Cena and Rollins. Well, they touch on Rollins' loss last week, but they also touch on the fact that John Cena had an encounter with Dolph Ziggler, and that's what caused the main event tonight between John Cena and Dolph Ziggler. And they also mention that we need to keep an eye out to see if the next chapter in the heated rivalry between Seth Rollins and John Cena will be written as we continue on the road to Fastlane. Speaking of John Cena, Seth Rollins, and Kane, they start off the show. More favorably, it starts off with Seth Rollins and Kane in the ring, and they are discussing what happened last week. Seth says that once again I came up, you people would describe it as me coming up short. I describe it as me getting screwed out of the WWE, screwed once again by the coward Randy Orton. That's why we took Randy Orton out, because we don't have cowards in the Authority. And now Randy Orton expects me to keep him in the back of my mind as I deal with John Cena, because Randy is trying to get in my head, but Randy, it's gonna take a heck of a lot more than you interfering with your entrance music to get in my head. And Cena, if you really want a match against me, and you really want to fail again, then you will find out later tonight what those conditions are. Because I will accept your challenge if you accept my conditions. The thing is, John, I don't understand why you would want to fight me. Because it's most definite, without a shadow of a doubt, that you are going to come up short again. And just like the Royal Rumble, when you failed, you will fail against me at Fastlane. Because the Authority always wins. Now we move to the SmackDown Rebound. To be honest, I don't know why I put John Cena on that, because he wasn't in the segment. It was just about John Cena. I guess that might be why I put him in the segment. This is about the SmackDown Rebound, highlighting what happened last week with Daniel Bryan. In Daniel Bryan's match, Daniel Bryan and Seth Rollins' match with Randy Orton interfering, and I'm trying to think back to other things that happened on SmackDown, but I can't remember anything. I apologize. Cesaro against Fandango. what has become my traditional match type, Cesaro, is built up for this. Christian comes out because Christian and Cesaro have both had their problems with the Miz and Mizdow over the last couple of weeks. Especially Christian, which goes back to when Miz and Mizdow were guests on Christian's Peep Show. Cesaro and Christian decide that they have a common interest in Miz and showing Mizdow that he could be better on his own. This leads to excuse me, I just gotta turn Christian face. This leads to this with Miz and Cesaro. The only reason why Cesaro is here and the Miz isn't is because the game only has a segment that would involve 2 people, not 3. So Christian's there, but we're not really a part of it because the bigger feud is and has been Cesaro and the Miz. Miz is pissed off that they're discussing how to screw with the Miz, and that makes the Miz come out. This now I would run a video package highlighting the training that Roman Reigns is going through leading up to WrestleMania. This is not the first time, this is not the last time you will see this, that you'll see this again as we get closer to WrestleMania, but Roman Reigns is training for his match against Brock Lesnar, and that's why I show this. Now we move on to the next match with the Usos against the Primetime Players. Solid tag team match for a match that involves 2 babyface teams, and then we lead to a very, very big surprise. This. From out of nowhere, Bubba Ray and Devon, the Dudley Boys, hop the railing and attack Jimmy and Jay, leaving the Usos laying and dropping Jay with a Dudley Death Drop after knocking Jimmy to the outside. And they stay in the ring and say, and Bubba grabs the mic and he says, "We're back." Gives the mic to Devon and he says, "Oh my brother, testify." Then they walk away. The announcers put over the fact that Dolph Ziggler will be taking on John Cena later tonight. And we highlight the backstage altercation between Cena and Dolph from SmackDown, where Cena is confronting Dolph about his change in attitude, and Dolph believes that the fans were going to turn on him so he beat them to it. And JBL agrees with and seconds Dolph's logic. The other 2, Michael and Booker, disagree with Dolph's attitude change and thinks that Dolph is wrong and the people weren't going to turn on him. But we shall see how the match goes later tonight. Now we move on to the next match. The next segment with Lana and Rusev. In all honesty, I would probably say what would happen here is that Rusev and Lana would say, I would have Lana go over who Rusev has beaten thus far. That being Jack Swagger, Big Show, Mark Henry, and a couple other lesser named guys. and this is where I would have her pick up. It didn't matter if it was a real American. It didn't matter if it was a giant. It didn't matter if it was the self-proclaimed world's strongest man. Rusev crushed all of them. And Ryback, you think you're different. Because you keep saying that when Rusev, not if, you say if. It's when Rusev knocks you down, you will get back up. And if he knocks you down again, you will get back up again. And you will say the stupid expression of feed me more. Rusev. What you don't understand is, when Rusev knocks you down, he doesn't knock you down. He crushes you. Where you can't get back up. And that's a promise that you will fail, just like every other American has, because that's what Americans are. Failures. And of course, what would a jobber match be without WWE's resident jobber, Heath Slater? And now we move on to the next segment. Ryback. Rusev keeps the accolade locked in for a little too long, and that leads to Ryback running out and helping Heath Slater and saving Heath Slater from further injury and running Rusev off. And that promotes a stare down from the big guy and the Russian and the hero of the Russian Federation. Now we move backstage. AJ is preparing for her match with Paige later tonight, and Paige walks up and says, and looks at AJ and says, "We're not best friends, but let's go out there and tear the house down like only we can." And AJ nods and says, "I'll bring my best, and I hope you do too." And that leads to this. AJ versus Paige, which the match ends in a double disqualification after Brie and Nikki run out and destroy the match. And leave both AJ and Paige laying on the mat. Why? Plain and simple. The Bellas feel like Paige shouldn't be getting a title shot, and Nikki should be. Because Nikki didn't lose a title shot. Didn't lose at the Royal Rumble to AJ. It ended in a draw. Which means Nikki deserves another shot. So, the only way to find out if Nikki's going to get the shot is to continue to the #1 contender match scheduled for later tonight. But I will say that this isn't over between AJ and Paige. AJ, Paige, and the Bellas. Now we move to the next segment with Roman Reigns coming out and doing somewhat of a shoot. See, I would have Roman come out here, and I know a couple weeks ago I think the week right after the Rumble, I said I was going to keep Roman's promos short and to the point. Well, the reason why you haven't heard from Roman is because the thing I don't understand is you have people on the main roster who aren't comfortable, who may not be that good at cutting promos, but you have some of the best guys at cutting promos on the main roster working backstage. Hunter. And at your disposal, Hunter, Shawn Michaels, The Rock, Arn Anderson, The Outlaws. I would have those people working with Roman, giving Roman advice, helping Roman get better at promos so he can become a total package. So he can become the total package when it comes to cutting promos. And where he's not lackluster, uncomfortable, not good, etc., etc., etc. So basically you would ask, what is Roman going to say? Well, Roman, I would start with him giving an explanation as to why he was nowhere to be found since the day after the Rumble, or 2 days after, since the SmackDown after the Rumble. The fact of the matter is, I would have Roman say something to the effect of, I was kept off TV. I mean, people have been warning me about a certain backlash. I've been hearing the mutters that people are saying that I don't belong in the WrestleMania main event. I should have the WrestleMania main event taken away. The thing those people don't understand is that I have the heart. I have the ability. And I have the willingness to overcome. And I will knock down anybody who stands in my way and thinks I can't do it. If that's what it takes to prove to those people who believe I don't belong here, that don't think I deserve to be here in this position, I will do what it takes to prove it to you. And prove each and every one of you wrong. And you can believe that. Just as Roman says that, Brock Lesnar's entrance music starts to play, and out comes Paul Heyman. And Paul Heyman says, that's a great story, Roman. That is a great story. That'd be a great story. The underdog, the undeserving #1 contender, topples the beast. Topples the 1 in 21 in 1. Topples the person who destroyed John Cena at SummerSlam. You can say all you want that you've had the odds stacked against you in your life. You can say that you're willing to prove your critics wrong. Fact is, Roman, you can say that you're willing to knock down anybody else that wants to stand in your way before you get to the WrestleMania. But nobody else is like my client. Nobody else is a beast. And that means you can't prepare for what it'll be like to be in the ring with my client, because my client is unlike anybody else. You want to ask The Undertaker, ask John Cena, ask your former running buddy, Seth Rollins. My client is unlike anybody else. And you will see that at WrestleMania, when you're on your back looking up at the stars, wondering where did it all go wrong. You can believe that. And then I would have us go to commercial and come back with Santino Marella versus Kane. And much like Fernando versus Kane a week ago on Raw, this match got a lot better than that match last week, but still, all it was is to get Kane back over as a monster. That's it. All it was is to get Kane back over as a monster. Or try and get Kane back over as somebody who's dangerous, and more than just a corporate stooge. Now we move on and we go backstage as a camera catches up with the Dudley Boys leaving the arena. And Renee Young, let's say Byron. Byron tries to catch up to them, but the Dudleys just keep walking and don't say a word other than what they said before, what Bubba said before after they attacked the Usos. So this, my friends, is the first of many surprises coming. Well, a couple more. I promise you that. Now we move back into the arena. This is why I said let's make it Byron, because Renee had a promo, an interview segment with Cena following that segment, so it'll be kind of hard for her to do that. Renee is with Cena, and she asks him what he thinks about what Seth Rollins said earlier tonight, and also his match against Dolph Ziggler later tonight. He says something to the effect of course Seth Rollins has conditions to step in for our match, to want to be in a match against me, because he keeps calling Randy Orton afraid. He keeps saying that Randy Orton's a coward. But he's afraid of actually being in a fight where the authority won't be able to help him, or may not be able to help him. Well, Seth, what I have to say to that is, you want some, come get some. But you might not like my answer. But just like your conditions, you're going to have to wait and find out my answer. And Dolph Ziggler, it seems like everybody in this company is needs an attitude adjustment. No pun intended. First you, then I move on to Seth Rollins. And both of you, and you, maybe you can give Seth Rollins a heads up of what it feels like to be brought down to earth and get your attitude adjusted. And then we shoot backstage. And if you remember a couple weeks ago before the Royal Rumble, where I did segments with the Authority being in private, and anytime our camera tried to get in there, we would get kicked out. It happens again. And now the announcers are speculating that the Authority are planning something, but they don't know what. Now we move to the #1 contender match for the Divas title, and guess what happens? Natalya wins. Because of a distraction from AJ Lee. And Paige. From AJ and Paige. Which allows Natalya to hit Nikki with a German suplex. What does this mean? This means that Natalya gets a title shot against AJ at Fastlane in 2 weeks. And this happened right after. A 5-diva brawl between AJ, Paige, Nikki, Natalya, and Brie. Why is it happening? The Bellas got involved in Paige and AJ's match. AJ and Paige got involved in the Bellas match. Natalya's the #1 contender. There you go. Now, Michael Cole, we go to the announcers, and the announcers clear up what's going on in the Divas title picture with the fact that Natalya is now the #1 contender for the Divas title at Fastlane, which means AJ Lee will be going against Natalya for the Divas title at Fastlane. Now we move to the next segment, Goldust. This is the first time since Cody turned on Goldust that we are hearing from Goldust. I thought it was longer, but it was only a week ago. So, whatever. Goldust issues an open challenge to the roster, saying he's ready to prove that he still has it. Goldust goes against Tyson Kidd, and Goldust gets the win. This is, you might not like it. You might not like my way of booking, especially on consistent shows or consecutive shows or more than one show. This is no more than just Goldust keeping Goldust momentum good because of his feud with his brother, which will continue in some form on SmackDown. Didn't really have time to do it now. Seth Rollins is now brought into an interview position with Renee Young, and Seth discloses his conditions. Renee asks, "Okay, Seth, what are your conditions to verse John Cena, if you don't mind me asking?" "Well, Renee, for me to step into the ring against the so-called face of the WWE, the so-called barrier between the future becoming the present, my condition is that if I accept John Cena's match at Fastlane, that I get to make the stipulation that if I win, the Authority is back in power. But if I somehow lose, then the Authority can remain out of power." Think about it, John. Do you really want to fail again? Think about it. Now we move to the backstage area, where we just see Dean Ambrose. And the announcer's question, because we see a weird grin, or creepy grin on the face of Ambrose, and the announcer's question, is Ambrose up to something? Before we can find out, we move to the main event. Dolph Ziggler against John Cena. And yes, you're not misreading it. Dolph Ziggler defeats John Cena with a zigzag off a distraction from Seth Rollins and interference from Kane. Fact of the matter is, Dolph just turned heel. Let me explain that for a second. Dolph isn't a full-blown heel. He's a tweener, meaning he's not a heel or a face. People can still cheer him, people can boo him. It's up to you. The reason why I put Dolph over is because he just turned. And how stupid in my mind would that be to have Dolph, freshly turned, lose to John Cena, which would, in my opinion, prevent his turn from getting over even more. and giving him more momentum and giving him more room to grow. So, what happens next? Well, this happens. Dolph Ziggler and Seth Rollins look like they're going to continue their beating on Cena. But who comes out? Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan comes out and makes the save for Cena, preventing Seth Rollins and Dolph Ziggler preventing Dolph Ziggler and Seth Rollins from inflicting any more damage on Cena as they get out of the ring. And this leads to a heated confrontation between Dolph and Seth and Daniel and Cena. Daniel and Cena have a heated confrontation with Dolph and Seth as the show goes off the air, which obviously could lead to a tag team match in the very near future between the four. We'll see what happens. We'll see how I feel. But the show's over now. The best Raw I have ever done at an 82. I don't know why I had to show it. I don't know why I couldn't just say it. This is, however, one of the longest Raws I've done. Go figure. I hope you guys enjoyed. We are 2 weeks away from Fastlane, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.